The knock came just before dawn. Heavy, deliberate. The kind of knock that makes your chest tighten before your mind can catch up. It echoed through the small, worn-out apartment like a warning from a past that refused to stay buried. Daniel Carter froze. His hand remained wrapped around a chipped mug of lukewarm coffee as his heart began pounding so loudly it nearly drowned out the second knock. For a moment he simply stood there, listening, waiting, wondering. Outside that thin wooden door stood something or someone that would change his life forever. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest act of kindness can return when we least expect it. Daniel Carter wasn't always this tired. There was a time when his laughter came easily and his future felt limitless. But life has a way of reshaping people, of testing them, of placing burdens on their shoulders they never imagined carrying. 5 years earlier, Daniel had buried his wife, Emily Carter. A sudden illness had taken her away, leaving him alone with their 3-year-old daughter, Lily. The loss shattered him, yet somehow he kept moving forward, because he had no choice. Every morning began before sunrise. Every night ended long after the city had gone to sleep. He worked 2 jobs, one as a janitor in a downtown office building, the other delivering groceries across the city late into the evening. His hands grew rough. His back ached constantly, and exhaustion became his closest companion. But whenever he looked at Lily, everything felt worth it. She was his reason, his purpose, his strength. Their apartment wasn't much. The paint peeled from the walls. The heater worked only when it wanted to. And every month felt like a battle against bills that never stopped coming. But it was home. It was where Lily's laughter filled the rooms, where bedtime stories turned into dreams, and where Daniel fought every single day to give his daughter a future brighter than his own. Still, even the strongest hearts have limits. Rent was overdue. School fees remained unpaid. Lily's shoes were so worn out that Daniel had slipped pieces of cardboard inside them to cover the holes. For the first time in years, hope felt dangerously fragile. And then came the knock. Daniel slowly opened the door. Standing in the hallway was a man who looked completely out of place. Tall, confident, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Daniel earned in a month. Yet it wasn't the suit that caught his attention. It was the man's presence, the quiet confidence, the unmistakable aura of someone accustomed to power. His name was Alexander Hayes, a name known across industries, a billionaire CEO whose decisions shaped companies, markets, and lives. So why was he standing in this crumbling apartment building? Daniel frowned. "Can I help you?" Alexander studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his eyes, no judgment, only something deeper, something strangely personal. Then he spoke. "It is time, Daniel Carter, for you to repay what you owe." The words struck like a bolt of lightning. Daniel stared at him. What? His mind raced. Had there been some mistake? A debt? A misunderstanding? He had never met this man before. At least not that he could remember. Fear tightened its grip around his chest. When life has already taken almost everything from you, the possibility of losing what little remains becomes terrifying. But Alexander made no threats. He demanded no money. Instead, he handed Daniel a plain envelope. "Open this when you're ready to understand." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. Gone. Leaving behind only questions. Daniel closed the door slowly. His hands trembled as he stared at the envelope. It looked ordinary, yet somehow it felt heavier than anything he had ever held. Finally, he opened it. Inside was an old photograph. The moment he saw it, his breath caught. It showed a younger version of himself sitting at a bus stop during a storm. Beside him sat a thin, exhausted man. His clothes were worn, his expression defeated. And suddenly Daniel remembered. 10 years earlier. Back when he was struggling himself. Back when he still believed that helping someone was simply the right thing to do. That rainy afternoon, he had noticed the stranger sitting alone. Cold, hungry, broken. Most people walked past without even looking. Daniel hadn't. He had taken off his jacket and given it to the man. He had bought him a hot meal, then handed him the last cash he had in his wallet. At the time it hadn't felt extraordinary. It was simply kindness. Nothing more. He never expected to see the man again. But now, staring at the photograph, realization crashed over him. The man from that bus stop was Alexander Hayes. The envelope contained a letter. Daniel unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was neat and deliberate. Every word carried weight. Alexander explained that the day they met had been the lowest point of his life. He had lost everything. His job, his home, his confidence, his purpose. He had become invisible, forgotten by a world that once respected him. And then a stranger had stopped. A stranger who had very little himself, yet chose to help anyway. That stranger was Daniel. Alexander wrote that Daniel's kindness had reminded him of something he desperately needed to remember. That his life still mattered. That he still had value. That he could begin again. And so he did. He rebuilt. Failed. Tried again. Worked harder. Refused to quit. Years later, he became one of the most successful businessmen in the country. But he never forgot the man at the bus stop. Never forgot the kindness that helped save him. And now it was time to return it. Days later, Daniel met Alexander again. What happened next felt almost impossible. Alexander didn't offer him a handout. He offered him opportunity. A stable job. Fair pay. Benefits. Flexible hours. Security. The kind of security Daniel had not felt in years. He also arranged educational support for Lily, ensuring she would never lose opportunities because of money. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt the crushing weight on his shoulders begin to lift. At first, accepting the help wasn't easy. Pride told him to refuse. Fear told him it couldn't be real. But eventually he understood something important. This wasn't charity. This was kindness finding its way back home. Months passed. Life slowly transformed. Lily's smile became brighter. The constant worry faded from Daniel's eyes. Their tiny apartment was replaced by a comfortable home filled with warmth and hope. For the first time since Emily's death, Daniel allowed himself to believe in the future again. But perhaps the greatest gift Alexander gave him wasn't financial security. It was hope. The belief that goodness still existed. The belief that even when kindness seems forgotten, it leaves a mark. A mark that can survive years. Even decades. Because kindness is never truly wasted. Sometimes it travels quietly through time, waiting for the right moment to return. Years later, Daniel found himself standing in front of another door. This time, he wasn't the man struggling to survive. He wasn't the man desperately searching for hope. He was the man who finally had enough to help someone else. As he raised his hand and knocked, a smile appeared on his face. Because in that moment, he understood something beautiful. The cycle of kindness had come full circle. And he was now part of someone else's miracle. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still matters. And remember, you may never know how deeply a single act of kindness can change a life. But that doesn't mean it won't.